Hello and welcome to another episode of the Move Forward Anyway podcast, featuring dream accelerating inspiration. As always, you can learn more about my Dream Accelerator coaching process at jeffmeyer.org. You can click on the Move Forward Anyway tab and watch all of these episodes in video form, or you can download wherever you like to get your podcasts from. I'm your host, author, entrepreneur, and coach, Jeff Meyer. Welcome back, successful dreamers. We are awesome. We are so excited to have you back in another episode of our podcast, Move Forward Anyway. And I am ecstatic today to have the opportunity on this gorgeous day here in Wisconsin. I don't know what it's like in Atlanta, Chris, but it's beautiful here right now. It's not snowing.
It's a benefit, right? Another reason I live in Atlanta and not up there anymore.
Yeah, right. It could snow tomorrow, though. You never know. It's so good to be with Chris today and to share a little bit of his journey, his entrepreneurial journey, his life journey. Thank you so much, brother, for taking the time to be with me on my podcast, Move Forward Anyway. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us just whatever you want to tell us about yourself.
My name's Chris Lalamia. I started my own business 13 years ago after being in the corporate zoo for years. I, like many people, had a long and windy career. I started out as a manufacturing engineer, eventually got into bank mergers and working in process consulting, and then eventually got hired and got that job that we all covet, that corner office, Mercedes, custom suits, everybody working for you. Got really intoxicated with the money. I was growing a family. I had a very successful lifestyle. And I just turned to my wife one day and said, that's it. I've got to start my own business. I've always wanted to do it. And I started the Trusted Toolbox back in 2008. And if you remember 2008, yep, that's the beginning.
Oh, man.
So timing has never really been one of my best things.
Oh. So how did that go when you told her that I'm done. I'm being killed here and I need to be my own boss?
All right. So I will tell you exactly how it went. I came in at 8:00 at night after a long steering committee meeting in corporate America, where I just got beaten. And I drove 45 minutes to my house, got in the house at 8:00, ripped my tie off, came in the office where she was working, threw it across the room and said, that's it, I'm done. And she looked at me and said, you may be done, but you better have a plan there, Sparky. And that was in 2006. And that was okay, hang on. Before you just decide you're quitting tomorrow, you better have a plan. I actually launched in 2008, but it began, the gut turn moment for me was in November of 2006.
So describe to me what happened then between 2006 and 2008 before you fully went for it.
So the first thing I did was, I know what I'm doing is not what I want to do, but what do I really want to do? And then I went through the journey of, I know it's not this, what is it? And I investigated businesses. And then I started to really take assessment of, what am I really good at? And that was a hard introspection as well. I put that in my book of how hard it is to really say, you know what, I'm really good at this. And I will tell you, after I started the business in 2009, I would tell you, I was full of it. I was not very good at some things I thought I was, but I was better. But I did a lot of planning, and then I did with a lot of people. I mean, it is hard when you're getting that paycheck every 2 weeks, 401k benefits. You're seeing your kids go to a private school, and you're living this lifestyle, and you're like, am I really going to give this up? And you go through the ups and downs of, well, maybe I should just stick it out. No, maybe there is a better job. And then I surrounded myself with a lot of mentors who were entrepreneurs. And one of them just kept going in my ear. If you don't do it, you'll never do it. And you'll always wonder if you could have done it. If you don't do it, you'll never do it. You got to take the step, right? And that was the hard part was and so it builds. And so I went through the ups and downs, and you won't see this on the podcast, but the highs and the lows of, oh, I can do this. I have irrational exuberance and I'm going to do it. And then you go through those real lows of, oh my gosh, this is a lot more than I thought it was going to be. And maybe I should just park that one and start going to the kids' baseball games more.
Mm. Yeah, security is a very intoxicating reality, isn't it? That sometimes keeps us stuck and not living our full life because, well, I mean, I talk about this a lot. Fear is a powerful motivator to stay where you are. Um, the 401ks, and I'm sure your wife had, you better have a plan because, I don't want, I still want that security. So,
Right. The fear is obviously it's a big detractor, and it was also a motivator because what my friend said, if you don't do it, you'll never do it. And the fear of me being now I'm in my 50s. I started my business in my mid 30s. I didn't want to have that at 60 going, you know what? I wish I could have. I wish I did. And that fear drove me more. And that was one of the definitions of success that I started to develop for myself was I didn't need the big house, the country club, the fancy car. I needed to know that I could use, and you put up earlier, your whole brain. You get to use everything.
wow. So, tell me how the corporate zoo you talk about in your book. By the way, I would highly recommend the book, and we'll get you a link to that in the show notes. But the book that Chris has written is From the Zoo to the Wild: Your Guide to Entrepreneurial Freedom and Wealth. And so I want to hear, when you were in the zoo, how was that impacting you to, over time, have the identity or the life kind of sucked out of you, kind of draining out of you? What was that like? How did
That's
that
a great
impact you
question.
physically, emotionally, spiritually?
All the above. That's a great question. Corporate America does not reward an entrepreneurial mindset, does not reward the take a chance, the optimism. They always reward pessimism and rear view mirror thinking. And for me,
Mm,
I'm a very extroverted, and as I found about myself, an optimistic person. If you would have asked me 2 years before I left, if you felt I was an optimist, I would have been the guy who says, nah, I'm a realist, which really means you're a pessimist. And I had that beaten out of me. I had my optimism because if you walk into a room and take a chance in corporate America, you put your neck out on the line, they will find a way to eliminate that because we don't want cavaliers. We don't want revolutionary leaders. We want people who toe the line, who follow the mantra, who stick with the corporate direction.
mm,
Because as a company, that's how you build success. And for me, it was very stifling. I told the story earlier about when I came in and threw my tie across the room. That wasn't the first time. And
yeah.
I did say, she goes, honestly, we can all tell you are miserable. I mean, I was Mr. Third Inning. I was Mr. Halftime at sporting events. Both my kids were very active in all kinds of sports and
Mhm.
activities, and I would be lucky if I'd made half of them. And that really dragged at me because I'm a guy who loves sports and my time wasn't my own. And I just started to develop this animus towards having to get up at 5:30 in the morning, which I still do anyway.
Mhm.
And I still work till whenever I now do, but my time became my own. And so it really became difficult. And personally, I probably wasn't as fun loving to be around, and I like to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So the genesis of the dream, it didn't come because you had an idea necessarily. It came because you were getting crushed, and you in order to survive and live your full life, you had to find something different where you could be in charge. But you really didn't know what that was going to be.
I had no idea. I thought I did. In the book, and I'll tell this again, my my Italian grandparents, actually Sicilian, both had their own business, which was very avant-garde for a lady in the 50s and 60s,
Huh.
which is really cool. My dad
Yeah.
was not to go the entrepreneurial route and went into corporate America. And I remember at 17 telling him, well, I hope one day to have a business like grandma and grandpa. And he looked at me and said, hopes and wishes are at Disney and in fairy tales. He said, if you want to do something, you better write it down. And I did. I'm like, all right, I'll show you. Defiant young man says, by the time I'm 35, I will have 50 employees providing automotive parts to the automotive industry. Because I was from Michigan, that's what we did. I
Yeah.
had a piece of paper up until my last office move here at the Trusted Toolbox. I've just recently lost it. I can't find it anywhere. But I went back to that and said, I know I want to do something. I just don't know what the heck it is.
So how did you discover that then? I know you talk about this in your book. You talk about the sold decision framework, helping people discover themselves, who they are, which is what some of the stuff that we do with the Dream Accelerator. But usually I'm starting with people that have a fuzzy idea. You're starting with, I just can't continue in the zoo. But I don't know what to do. So what kind of process did you go through? I mean, what were some of your ideas? I would love to hear just some of your ideas that you were thinking about doing.
So again, very extroverted guy, love being out socially. And I started throwing ideas out, and I started surrounding myself with entrepreneurs. So here was my first idea. I'm in banking. This is 2006. Nobody could go wrong in banking in 2006. You start a community bank and you make millions of dollars and you can't fail. It's like betting on the stock market in 2000 and watching the whole thing go nuts. That's like getting into real estate in 2000, and you just couldn't miss. I don't care if you were smart, dumb, sharp, it didn't matter. So I said, we're going to start a community bank. And then we started hearing about some of these guys going down. And then I realized I don't even know how to run a bank. I'm a fix-it guy in a bank. I'm not a banker. So down goes that one. Then I was going to buy an engineering company, get back to my engineering roots. And they made gears, which I have a specialty in before I got into banking. So I got the NDA signed, looked into their bank, looked into their book. Remember, I'm from Michigan. I happen to have some engineer buddies who are still working at General Motors. There's one big assembly plant here was here in Doraville, Georgia. These are supplying gears to that one place. And my buddies were telling me, oh, by the way, the Doraville plant's not going to be there anymore. So they were saying, so I'm like,
it's done. Yeah.
I actually then said, well, I'm going to get into construction development. I actually had the manila folder in my hand. And on June 17th in 2007, I was going to be a construction developer here in Atlanta doing infill development with my buddy. I happened to be at the bank. My position allowed me access to the real estate. And it was just beginning to show the cracks. And it hit me there on June 17th, 2007. That's the wrong idea. So I threw that one out. So I'm sitting on the back deck having a bourbon with one of my buddies. And he said, why don't you come up 1-800-CALL-CHRIS? We always call you for home stuff. You clearly have a passion for it. You've come over to our houses numerous times on the weekends. You've helped us with things. You've given us ideas. You fixed it. Why don't you do that? And I went, okay. Off we got something. So off I went.
That's an incredible story. So it's like the doors closed on some of all the other ideas because you were researching it. I mean, you didn't just jump in blindly. You really scoped it out, and it just wasn't going to work. And then a friend in conversation just drops an idea that makes you go, huh, why didn't you realize that you had that passion before?
Yeah, that's a great thing. I don't know. I really do love talking about homes. And so since I've started my business, I actually calculated it a year ago. I was in over 12,000 houses since I started my business. 12,000. Wow. Because estimates and going to see my guys. And today I've got a team of 25 that run around working on home repairs and projects here in Atlanta. And you know what? I really like it. It's fun. And he was like, it's easy for me to talk about. Kind of like with everybody, it's easy to talk about things and fun. And that for me, I was like, this is really easy to talk about.
A lot of times in discovering dreams and figuring out what we should be doing, what we should be pursuing, the dream is solving a problem. There's a gap or there's something missing. And then you jump in with an idea to help solve that problem. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurial starts begin that way, right? What problem is your business, the Trusted Toolbox, solving?
The problem we're trying to solve and the idea that I'm trying to get across is professional home services in a traditionally unprofessional space. So we're trying to solve the fact that everybody has a home repair nightmare story. Everybody has a story about the guy you gave half the money to because you trusted him and you're a good person and they never showed up again. The guy you paid the full amount to and he never showed up to finish the rest of the job, or they used the wrong materials, or they created a problem that you didn't find out about until 2 years later. We all have those stories.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea I had was, from my professional background and being in the corporate America zoo and knowing that communication is paramount when you're in a big business, and trying to put that with my guys in the skilled trade. Now, 13 years later, I would tell you I'm a huge proponent of skilled trades. And I've flipped my idea here is I can put these guys in great positions to be successful personally, to help people in their houses so we don't have those nightmare stories. But these guys get rewarded for it. They make more for their family. I've got 2 of my guys now who say, Chris, I made more with you than I did when I was on my own. And that's the kind of stuff that really is rewarding in my business. But you'd asked the question earlier. I just tell you how I flipped my mindset from, I'm going to get these construction guys who are unprofessional to be professional. Now I'm like flipping the script going, I'm going to give my guys the professionalism so they can show off their inner artist and do some incredible things. And when you change it like that, that's where I have changed my passion, my focus with my company.
Wow. So there's a number of problems I hear there. The nightmare stories. I love your name, the trusted toolbox, right? So you can trust me. We're going to do the job. I can see that in you and hear that in you, and you have integrity with that. Another problem you're solving is you're helping people actually make a livelihood by growing your business and improving their place in the world as well.
Yeah, that's been the part. Simon Sinek says, start with the why. My why was a lot different in the beginning. And the what I do now is a lot different than the what when I started my business. When I was out there rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, I sold my Mercedes, bought 2 vans. I put myself in one of the vans because I'm pretty handy. My why, my what was not about, hey, I'm going to be a trainer and help people with livelihood. My what was, I got to fix some stuff, make some money, and get going.
Get going, right? So that I don't have my wife freaking out because I don't have a plan and we're not surviving. Wow. So I think that's pretty cool too. Is like you said earlier that you're never going to do this if you don't do it. And so you took the steps forward, and then you don't even realize what is in front of you until you start moving.
Right.
So yeah. The dream changes, the dream evolves, the dream advances, it grows, it develops, but it's never going to develop if you don't take that first step.
Right. Especially making the leap the way I did it. One of the things will be very contrarian and probably a little controversial is I saved up for 1.5 years. I cut back on what we did for spending, but I was going to take the jump. And I will tell you that even 1 month prior, I was going to make it a side hustle. I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep my job. I'm going to stay at the bank and I'm going to just do this on the weekends and have the guys, and I'm just going to run it from there. And I told a good mentor of mine what I was going to do. And he said, you know what? If you're half the way in, you're all the way out. He said, it will fail miserably. He said, if that's what you're going to do, he said, I'll just tell you right now, save your money. Don't do it because you'll fail. Because versus you can't just do this on the side. Not to do what you want to do with your business plan, which I had shared with him that I wanted to be a multi-million-dollar company and I didn't want to just do this on the side. And that's really hard because I know you've interviewed people who kept a side hustle because you got to keep funds coming in. But if I would have made this the side hustle, I think it probably would have failed. I would have given up on it.
You would have probably given up on it and stayed stuck in that zoo land experience in corporate America.
I think so. I really do.
So talk to me about the fears that you had in that moment when he said, you better go all in or you're not in at all.
That was a big gut check. Yeah.
Big gut check, right?
Yeah. In fact, the gut check happened at a place that you and I both know in Lake Nantahala, North Carolina, at our vacation home, which we also had. So I had a lot of stuff. I still, and thankfully have been able to retain all my stuff. You could call it success, but the point is I was up there, and it was that time where I sat there and my family slept. And I think I got maybe 30 minutes that night, maybe an hour in and out. But I actually sat there just trembling, going, am I really sure I can do this? And am I really willing to bet my family and take them from this veil of security that they feel they have and this lifestyle and upend the whole thing? And that gets really hard. It gets emotional even thinking about it again.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. Yeah, that was a big moment, right?
It was. But I came out of that weekend going, yep, I'm going to do it. I told my wife I'm resolved. I called my dad, who was a big mentor of mine as well, and said, all right, I'm going to do it. And so that was February 15th. And then we started on April 15th.
And that was 2008?
2008, April 15th, 2008. I put my notice in on April 2nd. I didn't do it on April 1st, so they didn't think it was April Fool's Day. I had my boxes packed, thought they were going to kick me out. My boss looks at me and says, you can't go. I finally got in the right spot. You can't leave me. I said, I got to go do this. So he asked me to stay through the end of the month, which I did. But I'd already booked a job. Again, best laid plans of the launch. My very first ad, I was going to do a friends and family launch. But my very first ad was I was going to get back to my church, and I put myself in a church bulletin at the Catholic Church. And we went to church that April 7th. And I saw my ad had already started running. I thought it was going to run in May.
Oh.
And there was a number on it, my ad. I didn't even have the phone hooked up yet. We leave church, go to Best Buy, buy the phone, come back to the house, plug it in, put on the voicemail at the time, because this is 08. This is not being able to voice over IP. And I got a call that week, and we did a job on April 15th.
So many people, Chris, that I work with and help sort through this entrepreneurial journey, they want to get everything perfected and get the whole offer, get the whole thing set up before they take the first step. And what I love about what you just shared is that you had nothing basically other than the skill set in you to launch this. You didn't even have the phone hooked up. We teach about the minimally viable product, like get your thing out there, sell it before you actually have it, because you have to test the market if there's a market for what you're doing. And it sounds like that's how you started.
So I felt like I had a really good business plan, and I used my business plan as a shopping tool and a way to talk with other people to get smart about what they were doing. And in that period I talked about that month before, when I was talking to the other mentor, I'm like, I just don't think I had this fully baked out. And he said, you never will. He said, just go. I'm like, done. So, and that's what I did. That's when I started realizing, you're right. You can't, the phone hooked up. I felt like I had this whole thing buttoned up. I had a 5-year business plan. Jeff, I'm telling you, man, I felt like I had it all figured out. And I'm sitting there, I flip over the bulletin and there it is. I'm like, you don't have anything figured out, buddy. And I sat there, the whole time sitting in church going, I gotta leave. I gotta go. And that's how it happened. I remember also later on after I started, I had this really great idea. It's called the home maintenance organizer and a home maintenance preventative plan. I spent about 2 months. And at that time, 2 years into it, I was breaking even. So I spent probably 2 months and let's call it $500-ish on it. I signed up 4 clients. What was I doing? So the idea that, and I go this, is just sometimes you just got to go out there and you got to have a process working that might be broken, and then you can refine it later.
Yeah. You refine it always, right? You're always refining it. You're always tweaking it as things change and develop. Wow, that is such encouraging news. Kind of verifies some of the things that I've discovered along the way too. And it seems counterintuitive for folks to think, what, you mean I don't have to have it all mapped out? No, just get started and help people along the way, and you'll discover so much more. Wow. So I'm sure that 2008 you launched, you got to church that morning and you saw the ad and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get my crap together because I got to go, right? I got a client already that is ready to go. I better figure this out. I'm sure that there were challenges and obstacles in 2011 and in 2012 and 2015 and whatever between when you launched and today. There's probably challenges and obstacles right now that you're facing. And there's fears that attach to those at every turn, right? So, what are some of the fears and the obstacles that you're confronting now or recently in the journey?
Most recently, the fear now is like getting this opportunity to talk to you on this podcast is a blast. Being able to publish the book, and I have an idea where I want to take our company called the Home Service Institute and get that going, because I'm just not going to sit on the trusted toolbox. I want to keep going. So my fear now is just because you did it once and you made it through, and maybe you forgot that while you're a success, it was just 13 years in the making. So it didn't exactly happen overnight.
Yeah.
So right now is, am I really ready to rock and roll and do it again? And out there and having that passion to persevere and keep optimistic. And those are the two always, that the optimism and perseverance will overcome those fears, because the fears can lock you up.
Yeah.
And being able now, I feel very confident about it, but there are, just like everything, it's the imposter syndrome. You never let your highs get too high and too low. And a passionate Italian guy like me, sometimes I get a little too low, and I got to pull myself back up.
Yeah. So how do you do that? How do you pull yourself back up? How do you move forward anyway?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I do follow this one. Is that the adult brain hears something today and needs a sleep cycle to fully develop and begin to do something with it. So I don't make any big decisions on my company on Mondays. I do not make any rash decisions without having one sleep cycle on it that will be a major impact to my company or my direction. And that's allowed me to kind of divorce myself from the situation and be more dispassionate to make a better decision within the soul framework that I mentioned. And that's really hard to do.
That's really tactical. You probably have people too in your life that keep nudging you, keep encouraging you, believe in you, right? They're invested in your dream.
Yeah,
Interested.
I do find myself surrounding people like that. Also, people who are good governors for me, because my passion is my greatest strength. And I mentioned this in the book. It's also my greatest weakness. It draws people to me, but it can also repel. And my passion can make me make rash decisions. So I have those people who are the governors. When I feel like I'm about to make one, I'll call a guy and say, yeah, it's Monday. He said, I thought you said you never make a big decision on Monday. I'm like, you're right. I'm going to make that decision tomorrow.
Wait a day. Wait 24 hours for the big decision.
Especially Mondays in my business. Mondays in home services, all the people have a chance to look at things over the weekend. And Mondays are usually a lot of fun. That's sarcasm. And when we have a Monday holiday, Tuesdays are Mondays on steroids. And that's people calling saying, got a problem with what you did here. I have a question on this. Oh, I want some more work done. So Mondays are always our busiest day.
Wow. That's interesting. I'm a pastor of a local congregation as well. And Mondays are the time the most pastors resign. They make it's Mondays are rough. You're coming off a high, right? You're coming off a big thing. And anyway, it's interesting how you've tactically said you don't make big decisions on Monday. So there's this quote in your book that I love. It's in a section, page 25, find my play at work. And you say, remember how you felt when you were a fun-loving, carefree, stress-free kid, waking up in the morning during summer vacation? Remember how the summers then seemed to go on forever? You'd meet up with your friends and do something new and exciting each day, and the hours would just fly by, with you lost in play until the street lights came on and you had to go home. And after dinner, you'd dream about getting back with your friends the next day. What if you could get back to loving to wake up each day and create something new? What if you could be doing what you love doing And then I love the way you say this ... for a living.
Yeah.
And I just think helping people pursue what they love, the passion that they've been given to make a difference in the world, is the best life that we could live, right? So why do you think so many people... Go ahead.
I think it benefits you in so many ways, because if you remember those, I don't know if that took you back to one for you, but for me, it took me back to my days in Jackson, Michigan, where I loved playing sports. I mean, play just one. It wasn't just baseball. It was Chicago softball. It would be kickball. It would be using a rubber ball and a kickball. We played every sport we could find, and we made sports up, and we did that all day long. Why did I go into sports? Why didn't I follow that passion? Well, that was my play, but really where my passion is a little bit different. And I could sit here and talk to you all day long about your bathroom. And if you're looking to remodel your bathroom, I could probably sit here and talk for the next 3 hours about your bathroom. So it's not necessarily, let's go play baseball or let's go play football or play a sport. Sports for me was an outlet and fun. And I found that really my passion was more about, especially now, I love talking about business with entrepreneurs. I love talking about homes. So when you find it, isn't it easier just to talk about, and you find it's more natural, just like we're having this great conversation now?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I remember as a kid in Spencer, Iowa, there was a vacant lot, kind of kitty corner from our house, and we decided with a bunch of buddies to actually build a baseball field and a wiffle ball field, right? And so I remember getting on my bike and dragging this snow wooden fence, behind my bike for miles to get it to set it up as our home run fence. And we built the whole thing, and we weren't organized. We just got out and played, and built the thing. And that was exciting. So yeah, when I was reading this, I was thinking about my childhood in Spencer and how, being an entrepreneur isn't carefree. There's stresses involved with it, right? There are hard things. I don't want to deceive people that are listening to this. It's been really hard since 2008 for you, but it's a different hard.
It's a different hard, and I think there's a great phrase going out there now. It's pick your hard. It's hard to stay in shape, but it's hard to go to the doctor if you don't stay in shape. Pick your hard, and it goes on and on. You're right. I would tell you, if you said, "Hey, Chris, since you started your business, have you ever worked a day in your life?" Oh, please tell me. The answer is, oh, are you kidding me? Yeah, I work every day, but I'm doing something I love. I mean, I sat here at dinner, 7:00 on a Friday night. I get a frantic call from a real estate agent. If you don't come clean off this grout on this brick, on this house, this deal will fall through, and it has to be done by 8 p.m. tonight. I had to stop dinner, get in my truck, drive up, take a steel brush, literally taking off 3 inches of this. If you want to tell me that I was loving what I was doing, I thought I picked the right business at that point, tell you, I didn't exactly, because as you all know, if you're listening to this, that's an irrational request that isn't going to stop a $500,000 house from going to be sold. But I went and did it. And that's what you do as an entrepreneur, is you just sometimes have to get up, get out, and get it done.
I have a friend he's actually an owner of a kitchen and bath remodeling business here in Madison. And so in the same industry that you're in. And just a couple of weeks ago, on his wife's birthday, he got in his company van. He's the owner, right? He's the CEO of this company, and drove to Kansas to pick up a cabinet to drive back to Madison for a project. And I was just stunned. I'm like, that is customer service at its finest, right? That family could have waited, but they were frustrated. They didn't want to wait, and so he went and did it. Drive to Kansas. So you got to. There's challenges, right?
Always. Or if you think, hey, I'm going to go be an entrepreneur and I'm never going to have another boss ever again. Guess what?
Guess what?
You just got them in spades. The moment for me was when I started my business. I had gone from working in a machine shop to being an engineer to working in consulting and having that job. I started my business. I told you, I think I had a great business plan. You heard the story about the phone, but let me tell you the next thing I figured out. I'm in the retail business. I had never even once worked in a restaurant. I had never worked in a clothing shop. I had never been working with the general public in quotes. And now I'm working with them on their number one asset. Think about the anxiety level I was dealing with. And I was like, holy cow, people are nuts.
Yeah. It's their home.
Yeah. So I got a lot of bosses really quick.
You had a whole bunch of bosses come and scrape off this grout, or the deal's done. That's a boss. Wow. What would you, at the end, near the end of this podcast, what would you like to say to someone who might be listening, who's in that space? They've been thinking about, like you said, you threw the tie across the bedroom many times. They've been thinking about leaving. They've been thinking about pursuing something different. They've been thinking about it for a long time and not taking action. And they're slowly dying because they know they need to do something different. There's something more for them to do. What would you like to say to them?
Well, first I'd say buy my book. No, I'm kidding.
By the way, here it is.
Yeah, there you go.
It's really good. From the zoo to the wild. Yeah.
For me as a natural extrovert, it was surrounding myself with people who did take the leap and then listening to them, asking pointed questions, making myself interesting. Before I did this, one of my great friends had a tire recapping business. It's a dirty, filthy, very hard business. To recap a tire in commercial trucks is really hard. I went to his place. I left the bank one day with my suit, fancy car, drove down to his place where he's there with jeans, soot all over the place. He's got 100 guys at his shop, very successful. He gets up every day at 3:30. He gets home every night at 6. He works very hard. And I watched him and he says, "This is the place you want to be?" And I went, "Yep. This is the kind of stuff I want to do." So when you go talk to people like that and you start just investigating, you start to figure out if that passion starts to well up in you. But surround yourself. Go and I'll put myself out there as a resource. I'd be happy to talk with anybody for 30 minutes. I love talking. So anybody wants to call me, I'd love to.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What a great, generous offer. I'd encourage you to take Chris up on it if you're in that space. Surround yourself with people who have been there or in the midst of that, and talk with them and research. I love the way that you have researched the process as you were thinking about it. Anything else you'd share with them?
Oh, geez, there's so much. I think again, find your way to find your play, because that passion's going to really work out. But for me, it was finding out that I really was optimistic and I really did have perseverance. I always knew I was kind of a hard worker. I mean, again, you've got to be very real with yourself in the entrepreneurial world. In corporate America, you have to keep yourself veiled and sometimes hidden because of different agendas and different kind of the march that happens. And that's just part of the deal. But when you're out there in the wild, you have got to be very real with yourself. And sometimes you got to look at yourself and go, you know what? You really stink at that, buddy. And don't ever do that again.
Don't do that again. Find someone else to do that.
Yeah. So that's why I have a bookkeeper now, because I came out of banking going, hey, I'm an accountant. I'm really good. No, I'm not. I'm horrible. But I banged along as far as I could. And I finally had to hire somebody 5 years ago. And so now I can't, we had our meeting yesterday and I was like, phew, thank God I only had 1 hour of this time.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I really appreciate the time you've taken to chat with those who are listening or watching my podcast. Thank you for just the time and the energy that you have invested in your dream. And that's going to bless so many people. And taking the time, I'm writing my second book right now. I'm in the final editing process of it. So I know what it takes to put this together and to put it out in the world. That's a fear too, right? You'd mentioned the imposter syndrome. Oh my gosh, does that hit us every which way when we try to put something out? Because when you write a book, you're perceived as an expert, but you're sharing your life story with this, and it's going to be it's a blessing to me as I've read it, and it's going to be a blessing to others too. So thanks for doing that as well. And blessings on your future endeavors. And maybe we'll get you back on the podcast again, and share the development of that dream that you're kind of wondering if you're, oh, am I going to pull the trigger on that one? And we'll continue to find the space to be encouragers in each other's journey. And maybe we'll meet up in Nantahala sometime.
You know what? You're on there. I'm gonna seek you out. If you get down there again, I'm gonna find out. And we're gonna come up and find you.
It's gonna be awesome, man. We can meet face to face. So as we conclude here, how can people learn more about the Trusted Toolbox, what you're up to, purchase your book? If they want to talk to you about their own entrepreneurial journey, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best way to do that, Chris?
Yeah, the best way is going to be chris@thetrustedtoolbox.com. That's my email. I also have the book website out there, zoo2wild, wild.com. You can find me on Instagram, Chris Lalamia, all one word, and you can always slide into my DM and send me a message. I'm also on LinkedIn. So that's the way you can best get me. Email and text messages are usually the best for me, but let's start with email. And I would love to talk to anybody who has an idea and wants to bounce it off me for 30 minutes. I'm thrilled.
Awesome, Chris. Thank you so much. Blessings on your journey, friend. And may you be rewarded for all the help you provide people with their, as you said, number one asset, helping them with their homes and creating it and making it a home that they're proud to live in. Honor to talk to you, brother. Thank you.
All right. I loved it too. Thanks again.
All right. Hey, fellow dreamer. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Head over to my website, jeffmeyer.org, for all the show notes and links. And remember, fear will come, fear will stay. Move forward anyway.